If you're wondering how President Trump's retribution tour is going, well, take a look at the new charges against former FBI Director James Comey this week. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche charged Comey with threatening the president. The key piece of evidence, Comey's now deleted post from last year of seashells arranged in the numbers 8647. MS Now is learning that the case was on the back burner until Pam Bondi was fired. That is according to two people familiar with the effort. Sources say, quote, after Bondi was out and a new acting attorney general, that is Todd Blanche, sought to win Trump's appointment to the job permanently, this seashells case gained new steam. Bondi pushed her team to pursue charges against Comey for lying to Congress, but that case was actually dismissed last year. In these new charges, however, Comey is charged with knowingly and willfully making a threat against the president and transmitting a threat in interstate commerce, according to the indictment. Here's how he is defending himself.
Well, they're back. This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago. And this won't be the end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go.
Max Rose and James Sample are still with me. So before the break, I said some legal voices. To be fair, most of the legal voices I've seen have been saying this case has no legal merit. Let me play for you just a mashup of some of those legal voices.
I must be in a parallel universe to be talking about the shell artwork of James Comey.
There's no crime here. I think the case is frivolous.
Just showing the picture is going to be a weak case in terms of a threat.
I think Comey's people will move to dismiss it, that it's protected speech, and I think that motion will be granted.
It would very likely be viewed as protected speech if it was the basis of a criminal indictment. That alone would have a hard time standing up in court.
Now, we chose those two because obviously that's like the right-wing media ecosystem that Donald Trump listens to. And those are two of the favorite right-wing lawyers that they rely on for their legal analysis. And they usually provide justification for whatever behavior Donald Trump wants to do. They couldn't even find any legal basis for this case.
I'll give Jonathan Turley this. We are living in a parallel universe when I agree with him. The serious legal context first. Right. True threats. That is a category of speech that is not protected under the First Amendment. And so for a true threat if a true threat is out there, like there is a statute vis-a-vis threats against the president, threats against others on the line of succession. That's real, and that's unprotected speech. But the most recent Supreme Court case on the true threats doctrine is from 2023. And let's be clear, 7-2, Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Kavanaugh, and Justice Alito are all in that majority. This is a robust doctrine, and to meet it, you need to have you need to meet an objective element and a subjective element. It needs to objectively be an imminent true threat. And subjectively, Comey needed to be at least reckless in not realizing that it could be perceived as a true threat. None of that is applicable here.
So you mean it wasn't imminent, given that it was like 11 months ago, and it took them apparently 9, 10, 11 months to investigate this threat?
Investigate a photo. I mean, the press conference vis-a-vis Todd Blanche and Kash Patel was amazing. Like, they had done some extraordinary investigation into photos on of seashells on a beach that took almost a year, right? There's absolutely no way. The same Department of Justice that 3 weeks ago decided to vacate charges against Proud Boys and Oath Keepers for January 6th.
The ones who haven't brought any charges against any of the Epstein class so far?
That same department, the one bringing charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center for infiltrating hate groups, is going to go after James Comey for seashells on a beach. It is preposterous.
Max, so why are we using resources to basically go after James Comey for free speech, however inadvisable it might be, when you have legit threats like what happened last weekend at the Washington Hilton, and there is such a growing radicalization problem? Wouldn't FBI agents be more utilized if they were put on monitoring threats and radicalization towards the president than going after James Comey, who anyone with a lick of common sense can tell is not a threat to the president?
as I provide legal analysis after,
after
the professor who
shift to law enforcement now.
Thanks. As I follow the professor who brings a briefing book with him to TV.
For MS Now Live Shot.
Thanks. Look, first of all, obviously, we live in a world of absurdity here. Pam Bondi refused to do this. Yeah. Pam Bondi, the person who would have shipped her own family down a river for Donald Trump, said, please, Mr. President, don't fire me. I'll do anything. She looked at this case and was like, man, I can't touch that, right? So that should tell you enough about the legitimacy of this. But let's not also forget, this is the Republican Party that claimed that the Democrats were engaging in lawfare. Yeah. That the Democrats were the ones that had weaponized the Justice Department, the same Justice Department that couldn't somehow figure out a way to bring a January 6th case to Donald Trump. This is true lawfare. And that's why it's so reprehensible.
And I keep coming back to this point about like who within Donald Trump's base is asking for this when the price of gas is going up and Americans are hurting at every turn. Take a listen to Joe Rogan describe this, and I'll get your thoughts on it.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Like, you're going after someone for something that's just silly.
It's
86-47 is get rid of 47.
Right. Free speech.
But it's just like arresting a guy for that is nuts. It just doesn't seem, it seems like there should be other reasons. Like, if the guy really was dirty, you should have something on him other than this seashell picture.
The common sense test.
Common sense when you turn in Joe Rogan for common sense. Right. But listen, he's lost Joe Rogan on a lot of things, but I keep coming back to this just because it's a part of the base that voted for him. Joe Rogan was among others who basically voted for Donald Trump and led people to vote for Donald Trump, and now he's basically abandoning him to some extent.
Yeah, well, I actually don't see Joe Rogan as the leader here.
Right.
His viewership is. Joe Rogan's a businessman who I'm sure is actually looking at polling data of his own viewership and going where they are. That's why he moved right, because his viewers were moving right. And now Donald Trump's base is eroding before his very eyes. Sure, there's a third, maybe, that just his ride or die.
Yeah.
But there was a significant number of people, millions of people, who were pissed off about affordability, pissed off about continued forever wars, and believed Donald Trump when he said that he was going to do something about it. And he has done exactly the opposite.
Well, he started a new war.
Yeah. Well,
importantly,
I appreciate that. You're reminding us of that.
Yes. So I have a question about the lawfare piece of all of this. Donald Trump has been apparently trying to get restitution for himself with this IRS case and potentially for some of his buddies like Michael Flynn, who actually pleaded guilty and is now claiming a political prosecution was in the works against him. Same thing with January 6ers. They're all, seeking some sort of restitution for the supposed lawfare that was waged against them. I'm dubious of those cases. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems a little thin. My question is for someone like James Comey or the very long list of other people that this administration has been targeting as political enemies, whether it's, Jerome Powell or some others. I think we have a very long list that we can show at some point. Do they have a case here?
They might have a case for vindictive prosecution, but much like the cases that you're referencing, Donald Trump suing the IRS, for example, for $10 billion, and then saying, well, I'm essentially the head of the IRS, so I'm going to determine that it is okay for me to bring this suit and that I am, in fact, entitled to this remedy. That's crazy. So your common sense instinct, your intelligent instinct is 100% on the mark. That being said, there's not a whole lot in the way of remedy that the Comeys, the Letitia James, that they have. There's not a lot out there in terms of remedy that they can seek. Now, you can pursue claims. You can certainly seek to dismiss the claims on vindictive prosecution grounds. But the reality is there are a variety of very complex doctrines called sovereign immunity is the blanket doctrine. It's not complete, but suing Donald Trump, suing the Department of Justice, unless they have consented to it, which is the irony, of course, when he consents to himself suing, that is...
All right, James, let me jump in because Donald Trump is speaking. Let's take a listen to him.